Hello everyone. So here we start with the lecture for week 2, which is chapter 3, data transmission. Alright, now the main objectives of this chapter are we are going to discuss about digital and analog transmission systems. What are the various ways in which audio, data, image, video, it can be represented by electromagnetic signals. Then we are going to discuss about analog and digital data, analog and digital signals. Then what are transmission impairments, how do they affect the signal quality, and then at the end we are going to discuss some theorems regarding the channel capacity. So let's start with this. So we will first of all start with the basics of the data transmission. The successful transmission of data depends principally on two factors. So whenever we want to send a data or some message or some email, the successful transmission of our message depends on two factors. First is the quality of the signal. If the quality of the signal is good or very good or excellent, there will be network connectivity and our message will be transmitted instantaneously. Second is the characteristic of the transmission medium. The transmission of our message also depends upon what type of transmission medium are we using. Are we using wireless medium? We are using a wired medium. And in the wired medium, which type of wires are being used? Is it fiber optic cable? Is it copper cable? So it highly depends upon the transmission medium that we use. The objective of this chapter is to provide you with an intuitive feeling for the nature of these factors. So in this chapter we are going to discuss these two factors in detail. Alright, so moving ahead, let's discuss some of the terminology regarding the transmission. Now, data transmission always occurs between a transmitter and the receiver. In the previous lecture, we understood what is a transmitter and what is a receiver over some transmission medium. So we have a source, we have a destination, or we call it as a transmitter. Source is transmitting the message, destination is receiving the message. Now this message is transmitted over some transmission medium. There are many different kinds of transmission medium. So data transmission occurs between transmitter and receiver over some transmission medium. Transmission medium can be a guided media or it can be an unguided media. Guided media is also called as wired media. So if we are using wires for our network connection, that is called as the guided media. And if we are using a wireless medium to connect to the network, that is called as the unguided media. So what are the some of the examples of the guided media are twisted pair, coaxial cable, optical fiber, or twisted pair cable, coaxial cable, optical fiber cables. And the examples of unguided media are air, vacuum, seawater. Now communication occurs in the form of the electromagnetic waves. In both the cases, the communication occurs in the form of the electromagnetic waves. Now with guided media, the waves are guided along a physical path. For example, if we are using any sort of wire, so signals will travel only along that path, only in that wire. Unguided media is also called as wireless. It provides a means for transmitting electromagnetic waves, but it does not guide them. Example is air, vacuum and seawater, because if you see in air, vacuum, there is no single path, or there is no guidance which can like propagate the electromagnetic waves through a guided path. That's why it is called as the unguided media. So moving ahead, now again we have few definitions over here. We are going to discuss few definitions over here. The definitions are direct link, point to point, and multi-point. So what are these definitions? Let's understand this. Direct link means the two devices are connected directly to each other. Just like if you have two laptops, you are connecting them by using some wire, that is called as the direct link. Direct link refers to the transmission path between the two devices in which the signal propagates directly from transmitter to the receiver with no intermediate devices. That means there is no intermediate devices in between the two devices, like amplifiers or repeaters are not used. This term can apply to both guided and unguided media. Now moving to the next, point to point. So point to point, again it's a direct link. Only two devices share a link. So in this case only two devices, point to point. So if I have a laptop and another laptop, if I connect them, that is called as the point to point. It is a direct link, but it is a point to point link. So a guided transmission medium is point to point if it provides direct link between two devices, and those are the only two devices sharing the medium. Last one is multi-point. So in multi-point, there can be more than two devices that share the link. So more than two devices, they are sharing the same medium. Now again a few terminologies. So we have simplex, duplex and full duplex, half duplex and full duplex. So a transmission may be simplex, it can be half duplex, simplex or duplex. Under duplex we have either half duplex or full duplex. So what happens in simplex transmission? In simplex transmission, signals are transmitted only in one direction. That means one station is always the transmitter and another is always the receiver. For example, in case of television. So television is the only one who is transmitting the signals, and your TV box or your television is receiving those signals. Another example can be your keyboard also. So keyboard is always transmitting the characters to the monitor. So it's a simplex type of transmission. Then we have duplex. Duplex means when the transmission occurs in both direction. So simplex means always in one direction. So in this case, if for example this is the transmitter, this is the receiver, so always the communication will be from transmitter to a receiver only. Half duplex means, for example, I have two stations A and B. Let me just make it A and B. So duplex means signals can be sent in both the direction, like it can be sent from A to B also and B to A also. This is called as duplex. Now under duplex we have two things, half duplex and full duplex. Half duplex means A can also transmit, B can also transmit. Like A can send data to B, B can also send data to A, but only one station at a time will be sending the data. So for example, at a particular time, if A is sending some data to B, that time B cannot send the data. So in the next moment, if B is sending some data to A, at that time A cannot send the data. Example is, you might have seen the walkie-talkies with the police, which we call it as the police radio. So in that case, only one person is always speaking at a one time. Full duplex means both the stations can transmit to each other at a particular time. So for example, if A is sending data to B at a particular time, B can also send data to A at the same time. So it's a simultaneous transmission, and the example is the telephone system. Now, and the example is the telephone system. So in this case, the transmission occurs in both the directions at a particular time. Now we have again certain terms which are related to the signals. We have analog signal, digital signal, periodic signal and aperiodic signal. So analog signal, digital signal, periodic signal and aperiodic signal. So analog signal Analog signal is a type of signal where the signal intensity varies smoothly without any breaks, and the signal is continuous. It's in a continuous fashion over the time. In other words, there are no breaks or there are no discontinuities in the signal. That type of signal is called as the analog signal. First of all, just we will learn the definitions and then we will understand it. So the characteristic of the analog signal is that it is continuous, there are no breaks, and the signal intensity varies in a smooth manner. Digital signal, the signal intensity means a constant level and it abruptly changes from one level to the another level. So digital signal, the intensity maintains a constant level for some period of time, but then it changes from one level to the another level in a discrete fashion. For example, the analog signal. Example of the analog signal is the speech signal. For example, when we speak, the intensity varies smoothly and it is a continuous. Example of the analog signal is speech, and example of digital signal is any type of signal sent by our digital devices, and it is always in the form of zeros and one. It is a binary signal. Next we come to the definition, which is periodic signal and aperiodic signal. Periodic signal is a signal where the signal pattern repeats over a period of time. So signal pattern is repeating. So for example, if a signal is something like this, then the same pattern will be repeated after that. Aperiodic signal pattern is not repeated over a period of time. Now I can give you an example over here for the periodic signal and the aperiodic signal. We have the best example for periodic signal and aperiodic signal is the clock. So for example, we have a clock and we have a digital watch. Now in case of clock, I am explaining the periodic signal. Now in case of a clock, you have a hour hand, minute hand and second hand. So let me take the example of the for example, second hand. The hand which specifies the number of seconds. So that second hand continuously like changes. First of all, it is on 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. It is taking a complete round. When that second hand reaches to 12, it starts repeating the same pattern over a period of time. But in case of digital clock, if I take an example of the digital clock, so suppose if the time is at a particular time it's 9:10, next time it will be 9:11. So the type of pattern is not repeated over a period of time. So in a periodic signal, the signal pattern is repeated over a period of time, whereas in aperiodic signal pattern is not repeated over a period of time. This is the difference between them. So here is an example of the analog and the digital signal. So if you see analog signal, the pattern is something like this, which is repeating, and digital signal is always in the form of this. The pattern may not be repeated. So this is an example of the digital signal and this is an example of the analog signal. Alright, so moving ahead, periodic signals, the pattern repeats over a period of time. If you see, we have this pattern over here. Now after a period of time, this pattern repeats again, then this pattern repeats again. But over here, the pattern may not repeat over a period of time. So this is a sine wave and this is a square wave. So these are the periodic signals. So if you see over here the pattern, this is a periodic signal. If you see the pattern, this is a square wave. The pattern is repeating over a period of time. Next, now here we are going to talk about few terms or few definitions related to the sine wave. Let me just explain you the sine wave. This is the sine wave over here. Sine wave is always in the form like this, and this is a square wave. We are going to understand some definitions, some terms related to the sine wave. This is also called as the analog signal. So this is a common way of representing the analog signal. This is the way of representing the this is the way of representing the digital signal. So moving ahead and discussing some properties of the sine wave, which is the periodic continuous signal. Sine wave is a periodic continuous signal. So we are going to discuss in this slide three main properties: peak amplitude, frequency, and phase. So discussing sine wave is the fundamental, it's the fundamental periodic signal. So that's why we are discussing the sine wave here. So the first important characteristic of the sine wave is the peak amplitude. Now peak amplitude is the maximum strength of a signal. So for example, when a signal is generated, it starts from like zero intensity. We call the intensity or the strength of the signal. It starts from like zero intensity, keeps on increasing. At a particular point, the signal will reach to the maximum strength, and that point is called as the peak amplitude of the signal. Peak amplitude of a signal is measured in volts, so the unit to measure peak amplitude is volts. Next is frequency. Frequency is the rate at which the signal repeats. We know that a periodic signal, this is a periodic signal. So periodic signal is a signal which repeats. So the rate at which the signal repeats, this is also called as number of cycles per second. Number of cycles that are made per second is called as the frequency of the signal. Frequency is normally measured in hertz or cycles per second. Related to the frequency, we have a term called period. An equivalent parameter is the period. Now it is the amount of time it takes for one repetition. So period is the amount of time taken for one repetition. So the formula for calculating, if we know the frequency, we can calculate the period. So the formula to calculate the period is T is equals to 1 by F. So whatever is the frequency, 1 divided by F, we get a period for the signal. The next important characteristic of the sine wave is phase. Phase is the relative position in time within a single period of a signal. So it measures the relative position in the single period of a signal, and phase is actually the fractional part of the period through which it has advanced to some arbitrary origin, and origin is usually taken as the last previous passage through zero from negative to the positive direction. Moving ahead, if you now we have over here the sine, how to represent the sine wave. First of all, we are going to discuss these four examples, and then how to represent a sine wave. So here this is the general equation for representing the sine wave, which is St is equals to A sine 2 pi ft plus phi. Now this A is the amplitude of the signal, 2 pi, this f is the frequency of the signal, and phi is the phase change of the signal. Alright, so here we have few examples how we can know what is the amplitude of the signal, what is the frequency, and what is the phase change. Let me just draw a signal over here. So if I have signal, this is a complete one signal. So a one crest and one trough. This is called as the crest of the signal. This is called as the trough of the signal. This makes a complete one. Complete one signal. So frequency is measured as the number of cycles in 1 second. Now, if you see over here in the x-axis shows the time, and the y-axis shows some numbers which represents the amplitude. So first of all, how to find out the amplitude? Amplitude is the highest intensity of a signal. If you see over here, when the signal starts, it starts from 0. The intensity or the strength of the signal keeps on increasing, and at a particular point it has reached to its highest strength. Now that highest strength is called as the peak amplitude. So the amplitude of this signal is 1. Now coming to the frequency. frequency, then the intensity starts decreasing. Let me just complete amplitude. Now at a particular point the intensity of the signal is maximum. At this point this is called as the peak amplitude. After attaining the maximum intensity, the strength of the signal starts degenerating, it reaches to 0. Then at a particular point it starts having the negative value. So the peak amplitude over here is 1. Next is the frequency. Frequency is number of cycles in 1 second. So that means how many cycles a sine wave is able to complete in a particular second. So if you see, this is 0 second, this is 0.5 second, this is 1 second. So we have to find out how many cycles a sine wave completes in 1 second. So this is just a one wave. As I told you in the previous slide also, this makes a complete one wave. So in 1 second, number of cycles completed are 1, so frequency is 1. Now next, coming to the phase of this sine wave is 0. When a signal starts from from here, it always starts from a 0. Now so the phase of this sine wave is 0. Now if a signal, now how to determine the phase change, that is a very important point over here to be noted. Now for example, I have a signal something like this. Signal is starting from here 0. So this is the 0 point. Now a signal may start from this point. For example, a signal has shifted from its relative position to a particular position. So at this point the phase change is 0. If the signal starts from here, it is 0. At this point the change in the phase is 90 degree. At this point the change in phase is 180 degree. At this point change in phase is 270 degree, and at this point it is again 360 degree. So one complete cycle is 360 degree. So how to determine the phase change? So if my wave starts like this, so the phase is 0. But if my wave starts something like this, so that means half of the wave, it has shifted from 0 to pi by 4. That means 90 degree shift has been occurred. So this is a phase change of 90 degree, or we call it as the pi by 4. Now if my signal starts like this, for example like this is a phase change of 180 degree. Again last, if my signal starts something like from here like this, then this is a phase change of 270 degree. So you can know, like from here, if my signal starts from like here, this is a phase change of 90 degree. If the signal starts from here, this is a phase change of 180 degree. If the signal starts from here, this is a phase change of 270 degree. So in this case the phase is 0 degree. Next, coming to the next signal, so number of first of all, peak amplitude. The peak amplitude is 0.5. So the maximum intensity attained by this signal is 0.5 volts. Amplitude is always represented in volts. Next is frequency. Frequency is number of cycles in per second. So if you see in 1 second how many cycles are there, so number of cycles are 1. So frequency is 1. Again the phase change is 0 degree. Alright, coming to the next sine wave over here. The peak amplitude is 1 volts, and the number of cycles in 1 second. So this is 1 second. If we see over here, how many cycles this wave is making? 1 and then 2. So there are 2 cycles made in 1 second. Hence the frequency of this sine wave is 2. Phase change is 0 degree. Phase is 0. Next, coming to this amplitude, the peak amplitude is again 1. The frequency of the signal, if you see the frequency of the signal, number of cycles made per unit time, it is 1. And the phase changes, as I told you earlier, because if you see my sine wave is starting from here, so half of the wave is still not here, this part is not here. So hence the phase change is pi by 4 or it is 90 degree. So moving ahead. So moving ahead with this, wavelength. Another important property is wavelength. Wavelength is represented by the symbol lambda. This is symbol called lambda. What is wavelength? There is a simple relationship between two sine waves, one in time and one in space. Now, wavelength of a signal is the distance occupied by a single cycle, or we can put it in another way. It can be a distance between 2 points of corresponding phase of two consecutive cycles. Wavelength is always measured in lambda meters. It is always measured in lambda, and the equation is lambda is equals to Vt, where V is the velocity and T is the period. And in the previous slides we know that the relationship between T we can find out the T as 1 by F, which is frequency. So we can like put it V multiplied by 1 by F. Lambda is always represented in meters. V velocity is represented in meters per second. This is the velocity or the speed of the sine wave, and frequency of the wave is always represented in hertz. So this is the relationship between the wavelength. So here we discuss over here, the higher the frequency of a signal, the shorter will be the wavelength. So let's see over here an example of the wavelength. Higher the frequency of the signal, the shorter is the wavelength, because we know that wavelength is the distance occupied by the single cycle. If you see over here, the distance occupied by the single cycle over here, this is a long example of the long, this is an example of the long wavelength. So if you see, the distance occupied over here is this much in a single cycle, and the distance occupied over here in a single cycle is quite small. So if it is a low frequency, it will have a long wavelength, low energy, and if it has a high frequency, that means number of cycles per unit time are more, so it will have a short wavelength, because the distance occupied per unit time will be distance occupied by a single cycle will be less, so it will have a short wavelength, but it will have a high energy. Frequency and energy are related, so more frequency, more energy. Alright, we have a few examples over here to find out the wavelength, how to calculate the wavelength. Always remember, we have the formula lambda is equals to V multiplied by T, and T is represented as, or we can put it as lambda is equals to V multiplied by 1 divided by F. So find the wavelength of a wave traveling at 30 meter per second at a frequency of 5 hertz. So here we are given the velocity, we are given the frequency, so we have to find out the lambda. So simply we will put it put it in the equation. So we know that lambda is equals to V by F. I can write it V by F. Velocity is 30 meter per second, 30, and frequency is 5, so 30 divided by 5 is 6, and lambda is 6. The unit of wavelength is meter. Next question, find the velocity of a wave with a wavelength 15 meter and frequency 10 hertz. So here we are given the lambda and we are given the frequency. So lambda is equals to V by F. So here we have to find the velocity. So velocity will be lambda multiplied by F. Lambda is 15. 15 multiplied by 10 will be 150 meter per second. So velocity is always calculated as 150 meter per second. Next we have in the last question, find the frequency of a wave with wavelength 2.5 meter and speed 50 meter per second. Find also the period of a wave. So here we have to find the frequency, we have to find the period also. We know the formula lambda is equals to V multiplied by F. So F will be calculated as V divided by lambda, because if you see over here, lambda is equals to v divided by f. So f will be calculated as v divided by velocity divided by lambda. So if you divide velocity 50 divided by 2.5, let's check the answer. 50 divided by 2.5, and here we have the frequency as 20 hertz. The unit of frequency is hertz, so 20 hertz. Next we have to calculate the period. Remember the relationship between period and frequency is 1 by f. So period will be 1 by 20. 1 by 20 is 0.05 seconds. Period is always represented in seconds. So this is how we can calculate the simple problems based on calculating the wavelength of a sine wave. Moving ahead. Alright, so we have over here frequency domain concept. Now, when we are sending the signal, normally we are not sending a signal generated from one device. At a particular time, many devices, many systems or many network components will be sending the signals. So the practice is combining the signals of different frequencies and then sending them over the transmission medium. So the spectrum or signals, they are made up of many frequencies. Like if you see this signal, this looks like a single signal, but it has many crests and stuff. So this is made up of like many signals of different frequencies have been combined together, and then they are sent over a transmission medium. So the components always, they are the sine waves, and the Fourier analysis can show that any signal which is made up of the components at various frequencies, and each component is a sinusoid wave. So if you see over here, we always send the frequencies, we always send the signals combined together having the different frequencies. Alright, now if you see over here, I have three sine waves shown over here: sine wave A, sine wave B, and sine wave picture C. So the components shown over here in part C, they are the components of this signal. They are just the sine waves of a frequency of the signal in part A and part B. So this has a frequency 1, and if you see, this has a frequency 1, 2 and 3. So the frequency over here is 3. So this is a sine wave. The components of the signal, they are the sine wave consisting of the frequency 1f and 3f as shown over here in part A and part B. This is what I explained, that we do not send the signals of individual devices, rather we combine the signals generated from different components, different devices, and then send over the transmission medium. Now, what is spectrum and what is bandwidth? Few more definitions. So, what is a spectrum? What is a bandwidth? Now, spectrum is the range of frequencies contained in the signal. If I go back to the previous slide, so spectrum contains all the range of frequencies or the range of frequencies that are contained in the signal. So if I consider over here the spectrum, the range of frequencies contained in this signal are f and 3f. So this is the spectrum. This is the spectrum for this signal. So the spectrum extends from 1f to 3f because it is carrying the sine wave having a frequency 1 and it is carrying the sine wave having frequency 3. So for this, if I talk about this particular figure, the spectrum extends from 1 to 3. So spectrum contains the range of frequencies in a signal. Now we have two terms, absolute bandwidth and effective bandwidth. Now the absolute bandwidth of the signal is the width of the spectrum. What is the width of the spectrum specifies the absolute bandwidth. Or I can say the highest frequency minus the lowest frequency is called as the width of the bandwidth of the spectrum. So for example, if I take an example of this spectrum and I want to find out the absolute bandwidth. So what is the absolute bandwidth? The bandwidth of this figure is because it contains the frequencies, the signals having the frequencies f and 3f. So bandwidth can be calculated as frequency having the highest signal minus frequency the lowest frequency of a signal. So the highest frequency contained in this signal is 3f minus, and the lowest frequency contained is 1f. So the bandwidth comes to be 2f. So this is how we can calculate the bandwidth of a signal. Many signals have infinite bandwidth also. However, most of the energy in the signal is contained in a relatively narrow band of frequencies, and this bandwidth is referred to as the effective bandwidth or just bandwidth. So it is often called as bandwidth, or it is called as the effective bandwidth. It is a narrow band of frequencies and containing most energy, which means effective bandwidth is the band which most of the signal energy, where the most energy of the signal is concentrated. It's a direct DC component. So if a signal includes a component of zero frequency, that component is a direct current component, or it's a constant component. Now data rate and bandwidth. Now bandwidth in computing, it has several meanings. So we are going to talk about those meanings which are related to the bandwidth. So bandwidth has several related meanings. The first meaning of bandwidth is the maximum rate of data transfer. So what is the maximum amount of data we can transfer in a given path is also called as bandwidth. Bandwidth may be characterized as network bandwidth, data bandwidth, or a digital bandwidth, and it is measured in bits per second, BPS. So for example, when you buy your network connection from a service provider, he always gives you a speed. For example, the speed of this network is 1 megabit per second, or 1 Gbps, or something like that. So that is called as the bandwidth. So bandwidth is that is a network bandwidth. They give you a network bandwidth. So for example, modems, dial-up, ADSL, Ethernet, and wireless. Bandwidth in terms of this stands for the maximum rate of data transfer. That means how much amount of data you can transfer at a particular time. That is called as the bandwidth. Now in terms of signal processing, the one that we just talked in the previous slide, which is signal processing, or in signal processing, that is also called as the analog bandwidth. Bandwidth is the frequency range between the lowest and the highest frequency. So the highest frequency minus the lowest frequency will give you the bandwidth whenever we are talking about the signal processing, or we are talking about the analog signal. That means it gives us the range of the frequency. In other words, frequency band that communication channel is able to transmit. Bandwidth is measured in hertz, for example radio. So the two units are bits per second and another one is hertz. So how to differentiate between them? If we are talking about bandwidth in terms of signal processing, analog signal, then we are going to calculate the bandwidth as highest frequency minus the lowest frequency, and it will be represented by a unit called hertz. But if we are talking about the bandwidth for a transmission medium or a network or a data for data transfer, in that case the bandwidth will be represented by the unit called bits per second. So data rate and bandwidth, sometimes they are considered as the same. The speed at which amount of data is transferred between the two devices, that is called as the data rate, and this is represented in bits per second. So the relationship between data rate and bandwidth, any transmission system has a limited band of frequencies. So always the service providers, they have the limited band of frequencies. This limits the data rate and that can be, so because since they have the limited band of frequencies, so it will put a bottleneck on the data rate. That means the amount of data we can transfer through the transmission medium. Square sine waves have infinite components and they have infinite bandwidth, the square sine waves. And most energy occurs in the first few components, which actually results in limiting bandwidth, and it creates the distortions. So there is a direct relationship between data rate and bandwidth. The higher the data rate of the signal, greater is the required effective bandwidth. Or looking at the other way, if the bandwidth, greater the bandwidth of a transmission system, higher is the data rate that can be transmitted over that transmission medium. So higher the data rate, higher the bandwidth. So they are directly proportional to each other. Now we come to analog and digital data transmission. We have two things, one is data and another one is signal. There is a difference between both of them. So the terms analog and digital, they correspond to continuous and discrete, and these two terms, they are used very frequently in data communication in at least three contexts. First one is data, second is signaling, third one is transmission. So let's understand some of the term. What is data, what is signals, what is signaling, and what is transmission. Data is an entity that conveys some meaning or some information. So entity that can convey some useful information to us, that is called as data. Signals, they can be electric or electromagnetic representation of the data. So signals are the electric or electromagnetic representations of the data. Data is always sent using the signals. Next is signaling. Signaling is the physical propagation of the signal along a suitable medium. So physically propagates along a medium. Transmission. Transmission is the communication of data by propagation and processing of the propagation and processing of the signals. So in coming slides, this will be made more clear to you. Alright, so moving ahead. So let's talk about something about analog and digital data. So first of all, let's talk about the digital data. Alright, so digital data examples. In terms of analog and digital, we have analog signals, we have analog data, we have digital signals, we have digital data. So these are the four things. The concepts of analog and digital data, they are here we are talking about data. They are simple enough. Let me just explain you first of all analog data, then we will switch to this digital data. Analog data, as we know, it can take continuous values in some interval. For example, voice and video, they are continuously varying patterns of intensity. And most of the data is collected by the sensors such as temperature, pressure. They are of continuous value. Digital data takes a discrete values. Example is text and integers. Now let's talk about example for the most familiar example for the analog data. Let's discuss first of over here digital data. So the most familiar example of digital data is text or character strings. Text or character strings. While text data, they are most convenient for human beings, they cannot be in the character form and cannot be easily stored or transmitted by the data processing or the communication system, because such systems are designed for the binary data, and binary data is in the form of 0 and 1. So a number of codes have been devised by which characters can be represented by a sequence of bits. So for example, the earliest example of this we can consider is the Morse code. Today the most commonly used text code is IRA. IRA stands for International Reference Alphabet. Now what this does, International Reference Alphabet. In International Reference Alphabet, each character that we type or that we send in this code is represented by a 7-bit unique pattern. So each character is encoded as a 7-bit unique character. So number of characters that can be represented are 2 to the power 7. That means total of 128 characters can be represented by this IRA text coding scheme, which is the International Reference Alphabet coding scheme. This is a larger number than is necessary, and some of the patterns represent invisible control characters also. So IRA encoded characters, they are mostly stored and transmitted using 8 bits per character. The 8th bit is a parity bit which is used for the error detection. As in the, if you can recall my first video, in the first video we talked about error detection because errors have to be corrected and detected. So basically this IRA encodes the text in 7 bits, and then it uses one more bit which is the 8th bit. This 8th bit is used for detecting the errors if some errors have been introduced while transmitting our data. So this bit is set such that the total number of binary ones in each octet is always odd or always even. So this bit actually controls or detects the errors whenever we are sending the bits or sending the data in the form of the binary data. So the purpose of this bit, the 8th bit, is to detect the errors. Now how it detects the errors? It is actually called as the parity bit. So how it detects the errors? It checks the number of ones which are received by the receiver. So it checks whether the number of ones are odd or even. So if it is checking that number of ones are odd, this is called as odd parity scheme. If it checks for that number of ones in the data received should always be even, this is called as the even parity scheme. So a transmission error that changes a single bit or any odd number of bits can be detected by this scheme. Now moving on to the analog data. So the most familiar example of analog data is audio, which is in the form of the acoustic sound waves, which can be perceived directly by the humans. So acoustic frequency components of a typical speech may be found between 100 Hz to 7 kilohertz. This is the typical frequency range or the spectrum for the speech, which is from 100 Hz to the 7 kilohertz. So frequency means spectrum means number of range of frequencies that can be contained in that signal. Although much of the energy in the speech is concentrated at lower frequencies, tests have also shown that frequency below 600 or 700 Hz add a little to intelligibility to the speech of the human here. So these speech signals can easily be converted into the electromagnetic signal, and all of the sound frequencies which we call human speech, whose amplitude is measured in the term of loudness. Normally we measure the speech in terms of loudness. How loud is the speech? Are converted into electromagnetic frequencies whose and the amplitude is measured in the volts. So if you see over here a graph of a typical analog signal showing the variation in the amplitude and the frequency convey the loudness and pitch of a speech or a music. Similar signals can be used to transmit television pictures, but they use a quite higher frequency. Then moving on further, another example is of the telephone handset. So another example is the telephone handset. It contains a simple mechanism for making a conversion. Standard spectrum for a voice channel is 300 to 3400 Hz, and the telephone has a transmitter which converts the incoming voice signals into an electromagnetic signal over a range of 300 to 3400 Hz, and this signal is then transmitted through the telephone system to a receiver which reproduces the acoustic sound. Now last one is about the video signals. So video signals are used to produce a video signal. A TV camera, to produce a video signal we use a TV camera. USA standard is 483 lines per frame at a rate of 30 complete frames per second. So it can so a TV camera, it performs the similar functions to the TV receiver which can be used. One component which is inside the camera is the photosensitive plate. On that photosensitive plate, scene is optically focused, and then electron beam sweeps across the plate from left to right and then top to bottom. Now as the beam sweeps along, analog electrical signal is developed which is proportional to the brightness of the scene at a particular spot, and a total of 483 lines are scanned at a rate of 30 complete scans per second. So this is an approximate number if we take into account the time lost during the vertical retrace interval. And the actual US standard is 525 lines, but of these about 42 are lost during the vertical retrace. So the frequency is 525 lines multiplied by the 30 scans, which is 15,750 lines per second. Now, how to convert PC input to the digital signal? So, a user inputs a piece when you are sending a message, or how whenever we input a value to our personal computer, how it is changed to the digital signal. This is actually a general case of the binary data. Binary data is generated by terminals, computers, and other data processing equipment, and then it is converted into the digital voltage pulse for transmission, as shown in this figure. So a commonly used signal for such data, it uses two constant DC voltage level, one for binary 1 and another for binary level 0. So two voltage levels are used, one represent 1, and high voltage level will represent binary 1 and the low voltage level will represent binary 0. So this will depend, like we can if you see over here in this graph over here, the binary 1 is represented by plus 5 volts, and the 0 is binary 1 is represented by D5 volts, and 0 is represented by the plus 5 volts. So the signal for each bit has a duration of 0.02 milliseconds, as shown over here. And if we have a data rate of and it gives a data rate of 50,000 bits per second, which is 50 kbps. So coming to the next slide. Alright, it is about the analog signals. So digital signals, digital data can also be, this figure shows that digital data can also be represented by the analog signal. If you see over here, we can transmit the digital data by digital data can be converted to the analog signals. Now digital data can be represented by analog signals by using a device called modem. Modem stands for modulator and demodulator. As we know that analog signals, they represent the data with continuously varying electromagnetic waves. So digital data can be represented by using the analog signals by using a device called modulator demodulator, which is called as modem. Now the purpose of this modem, it converts a series of binary voltage pulses into the analog signal by encoding the digital data onto a carrier frequency, and the resulting signal which is produced, it occupies a certain spectrum of the frequency which can be centered about the carrier, and then it can travel on a transmission medium. So the most common modem represents digital data in the voice spectrum, and it allows the data to transmit over the ordinary voice grade telephone lines. And on the other line also, another modem, it demodulates the signal to recover to the original data. So this is how the digital data can be represented by the analog signals. Next is similar to the previous one that we talked about modem, analog data. If you see over here, analog data can be represented by the digital signals also. So the device that performs the function for the conversion is codec. Codec stands for coder and decoder. So the device that performs this function for voice data is codec. So codec, it takes the analog signal that directly represents the voice data and approximates that signal by a bit stream, and at the receiving end the bit stream is used to reconstruct the analog data again. Alright, so the methods for digital and analog transmission of data. So how to transmit this? Both analog and digital signals may be transmitted on a suitable transmission medium. The way these signals are treated is a function of the transmission system. So in this table, it is shown the method of the data transmission. Now analog transmission means transmitting the analog signals without regard to the content. That means the signals may represent the analog data, for example voice, or it may represent the digital data, for example it can be the binary data. In either case, the analog signal will become weaker. Weaker means it will lose its strength. It will attenuate after a certain distance. So to achieve longer distance, the analog transmission system, it includes amplifiers that regain the energy in the signal, and unfortunately amplifier can boost the noise components also. So if we cascade the amplifiers to a long distance, signal becomes more and more distorted, and for analog data such as voice, a quite bit of distortion can be tolerated and data remains intelligible. So if you see over here, we can transmit analog data using on an analog signal, analog data on a digital signal. So if we want to transmit analog data on an analog signal, there are two alternatives. First one is the signal occupies the same spectrum as the analog data, and analog data are encoded to occupy a different portion on the spectrum. If we want to send the analog data using a digital signal, then analog data are encoded using a codec to produce a digital bit stream. So we have the encoder and decoder. Now we have the digital data. Digital data can be sent using the analog signal or the digital signal. If we want to send digital data by using the analog signal, then they are encoded using a modem to produce an analog signal. So we have the modulator and demodulator. Now if we want to send digital data using the digital signal, we have two alternatives. Signal consists of two voltage levels. So we use a high voltage level to represent a binary 1 and a low voltage level to represent a binary 0. So we use two voltage level to represent the two binary values, and then digital data are encoded to produce a digital signal with the desired properties. Now the treatment of the signal, how the analog signal is transmitted. It is propagated through amplifiers. Same treatment whether the signal is used to represent analog data and the digital data. Now analog signal transmitted over a analog transmission medium. Here we are talking about the transmission medium, and analog signal is propagated over a digital transmission medium. So if analog signal is transmitted over a digital transmission medium, it assumes that analog signal, it represents the digital data. Signal is propagated or traveling through repeaters at each repeater. Now repeaters are the devices which are amplifiers which are used to regain the energy of the signal, because after traveling for a certain while, the strength of the signal is reduced. So at each repeater, digital data are recovered from inbound signal and used to generate a new analog outbound signal. Next is digital data sent over analog transmission medium. This is not used. Digital signal sent over digital transmission medium. So again digital signal, because we know that digital signal they are always in the form of 0 and 1. So it represents a stream of ones and zeros which may be represented by digital data or maybe an encoding of the analog data. So again the signal is sent through the repeaters. It passes through many repeaters. At each repeater, streams of ones and zeros is recovered from the inbound signal, and it is used to generate a new digital outbound signal. So same, the repeaters are used. Repeaters are used to regain the energy of the signal, because the signals after traveling to a certain distance, they lose their energy. So this was about the introduction to the analog signals, various definitions related to the analog signals, digital signals. We have talked about it. I will finish the lecture over here, and the second part of the lecture, in the second part of the lecture, we will start from the transmission impairments. We will start from here. So thank you so much.